Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Alright, this lesson is going to be about, it's really a response lesson to the Elder Bahara here in GMS Chicago. And basically it's about smiles and cries. Because basically, when you watch the movie Training Day, Officer Hoyt, who is a rookie, is learning from Alonzo, who was played by Denzel Washington. They're basically at Denzel Washington's friend's house, and basically Denzel's friend is basically talking to Hoyt and basically trying to teach him things about the streets. And he came up with some type of riddle. He basically said, if you figure that out, you figure out the streets. And Hoyt says, I already figured it out. And then he said, it's your smiles and your cries. And he said, basically, all you have is your smiles and your cries. Yeah, they can't take that away from you. So you just gotta control your smiles and your cries. And basically, in this truth, we gotta control our emotions. Basically it's about controlling your emotions, your habits, your lifestyle. That's what it's about. Having self-control, basically. And you want to be able to basically have self-control, control your continence. All right. And the elder in this lesson, you can go watch it for yourself. It's good, really good lesson. He was going into a few things, and I wanted to go into some an experience that I had with a brother in the camp. He's no longer in the camp right now. I ain't gonna say his name, but he always had a low confidence, man. He just never really had confidence. He was always he didn't believe in himself. He always had this unsure vibe, and it was always a turn off. But you admonish and you treat a brother like a brother still. But it was too consistent. It was always too consistent. He was always questioning himself and questioning things, and he was timid. And eventually he just fucking fell away. And it was damn. Bro gone, you know what I mean? So you don't want to always be around brothers with that low confidence, man. Are you in the faith or you not, bro? That's why the scriptures in Philippians, forget it, ain't it Philippians 4 or something like that? Philippians 4, I'll just quote it. I can do all things through Yahweh Shai that strengthens me. I can do all things through Hamashiach that strengthens me. And you wanna believe, Philippians 4 and 13. I can do all things through Hamashiach which strengthens me. You gotta act like that. You gotta act like the Lord can strengthen you and give you the strength to overcome, because he had the strength to overcome his. And the Bible says, be ye perfect as I am perfect. We can be perfect, we can be full, we can be whole. We gotta be like the Lord. And the Lord controlled his emotions. He controlled his continence, his character. All right. So basically, the lesson was about just having self-control and understanding your voice within this ministry and within the camp and the brotherhood. There's a certain way you go about things. All right, when you speak, all right, how you carry yourself, how you walk, how you present yourself. If you're always around the brothers with that woe is me spirit, it just turns Jake off. It's like, dude, what do you like, bro? It's like, are you in the faith or you not? Like, understand that, we got times when we get persecuted and, things go wrong and, we get down in the spirit. Even Paul was down, man. He talked about how he was shipwrecked, beaten by his own countrymen, snake bitten and all this. You know what I mean? But he always, stayed true to what he believed in. He always gave thanks to the Lord. And he was a part of the church. All right? So, you don't always want to have that woe is me spirit. You want to, even Job. I'm going to read from Job. Job, went through what he went through. And, he was, giving his friends hell. Yeah. But at the end of the day, he persevered, overcame, and everything that he lost, he got back, except for his kids. But, as far as like land and, his land, his cattle, things of that nature, that all came back to him. All right. That's what you always got to remember, man. And, there's always a redemption period for us. The Lord will give us a chance to redeem ourselves. All right. And come back. There's always a comeback. There's always a comeback for the faithful. All right. Job 38:3. It says, "Gird up now your loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me." All right. So you got to gird up your loins like a man. All right. You got to act like a man, be a man. And what does it mean to gird up your loins and be a man? All right. It means be prepared. Prepare yourself for war. Prepare yourself for a battle. All right. You want to make yourself ready. All right. And this is Ecclesiastes 12:13. It says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." And that's the whole conclusion. All right? That's what it means to be a man. To fear God, keep his commandments. All right? That's what it's all about. It's our whole duty. It's our life. All right? And this is how we truly get life. Through this. All right? Well, that's what it's all about. All right, it's all about serving the Lord and pleasing him. All right. So we got to gird up our loins like a man. But our continence, man. All right. Our continence has to be on point. All right, because it's visible. You can see when something's wrong on Jake when they come around with that woe is me spirit and oh man, you always got a problem. It's always a fucking problem. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like you can't never solve anything. It's always an issue. It's like you ain't never got your shit together. like nothing good can ever come to you. Like you don't always want to be like that. Because a lot of that is self-inflicted, man. A lot of this stuff that Jake be going through be self-inflicted. Jake done gambled, got burnt, And now it's damn, bro. Yeah, exactly. You know, like Jake need to make better decisions, and their confidence won't be so low if they would just make better decisions. You know, sometimes your decision making will get you put in a lower state. You know, and it could just throw you off. You know, simple decisions, man. But you know what? Sometimes Jake don't want to suffer by making the right decisions. The right decisions aren't always going to be pleasant. You know, it just isn't. It never is. Well, I ain't gonna say it never is, but it just isn't all the time. And Jake will literally take a shortcut just so they don't have to feel any type of resistance. And then that puts you even further back, because now you're trying to take a shortcut when you don't need to, you know. But that's the way Jake thinks. Second Edris 14:14, it says, "Let go from the immortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man, put off now the weak nature." So we got to put off that weak nature. We got to put the weak nature behind us, all right, and cast off the burdens of men, all right. So those fleshly burdens, we gotta put them to the side. We gotta get rid of it, all right, and operate in the spirit, all right. You know, operate within the bounds of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, all right, and then constantly be prayed up, because prayer is so important, all right. Prayer is very important. You know what I'm saying? Sirach 13:25. Sirach 13:25. And it says, "The heart of a man changes his countenance, whether it be good or evil, and the merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance." All right. So no matter what it is, whether it be good or bad, it'll change your countenance. But you got to control that. You got to control your countenance. You got to control your character. You got to control your spirit. All right. You know, I don't, you know, you just got to control yourself and have that self-control. Self-control is very important in the faith. All right. Because remember when they came to get Yahweh Shai, who was that? Who was that that cut the ear off of that that soldier that came for Yahweh Shai? I think it was it Peter? Or was it Peter? Hold on. Slakia. God, it was Peter. It was Peter. Yeah. But Yahweh Shai said, you know, it's basically roughly paraphrasing, hey, it ain't time for that yet, man. It ain't time for that. You know. The Lord said it, if this was my kingdom, my servants would fight. But guess what? It wasn't. So, hey, let that go. You know? Just let it go. You know, it just wasn't time for that prophecy had to be fulfilled, you know? You know, it was all about that prophecy. All right? You know, the Lord had to go up on that cross. All right? Because I'm pretty sure the disciples definitely would have fought to keep the Lord protected, for sure. All right? Proverbs 25:28. He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. So, if a man can't control his own spirit, You're like a city without walls. You know, people can walk right through you. All right? You know, walk in your home. You know? You know, you're just unprotected because you run your mouth too much. All right? So you don't want to run your mouth too much, you know, and you don't want to, you know, give off that reckless vibe, man. All right? When things get heated, you know, next thing you know, you run off at the mouth, you out of order. You know? You know what I'm saying? You hot headed. You know, scriptures say that a soft answer turneth away wrath. You know, you up here raising hell. But, you know, the other brother, he's cool as the other side of the pillow. You know, he's just cool about it. Whole situation getting blown up because of you. So you always want to be in full control of your spirit. All right? Be in full control. So with that, all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai.